All right, I'm going to keep this kind of short, so I'm going to skip over through a lot of things that you may not understand because I don't have the time to explain it all. But the subculture I'm choosing is astrophotography, and astrophotography is the pursuit of imaging the night sky, and it's my favorite thing on earth. It's like one of my favorite hobbies I go to when I need to cope or when I just want to really learn more about the universe and see what I can do, really. What astrophotography is you are using a camera. Usually you're tracking the sky using a star tracker. You might be using a telescope, or you might just be using a normal DSLR for wide field. But you are taking long exposures using a DSLR or a astro dedicated camera. You put them together. After you get all those frames, you put them together. You stack them, which is just terms I'm not gonna go too deep in, and then you end up processing them, which is just basically touching it up until you get the final image. Like, I put it that way. And yeah, so that's what astrophotography is. And people, there's a lot of YouTubers and just many influencers that just post their astrophotography. There's a whole website called Astrobin that I go to all the time. And that's where people upload their astrophotography and just share their images. And it's where I do. That's where I share mine. So yeah, so I'll get started. Key terms. So astrophotography is a very vast hobby, and there's so many learning curves within it. Like the amount of key terms is kind of countless because you can go from like catalogs, for example. You have to know certain targets that you're imaging. So like the Messier catalog. You have M31, which is Andromeda Galaxy. You have M33, Triangulum Galaxy. You have different just Messier numbers that you wouldn't understand if you didn't actually know what the target is. And, there's galaxies that goes up to like 130 or 120. I forget. But yeah, so that's like one in itself, but there's 130 of them. And that's one catalog. There's NGC, there's so many. But in terms of if I were to talk to another astrophotographer, one thing I would say, like if I was like the end of meeting someone and we were just saying goodbye, I'd say, yo, I see you, man. Clear skies. And what that would mean is basically, it's just how it's saying, like, I hope that you have clear skies because clouds and moonlight sucks for astrophotography. It's the bane of astrophotographers' existence. Yeah, so there's that one. There's deep sky object, which DSO, that's actually what most people call them. And that just means exactly what it sounds like. Objects that are deep in the sky that are really small and hard to photograph. And it could be like anywhere from planetary nebulae to galaxies to even just normal nebulae, to be honest. Globular clusters and whatnot. So stuff like that. Yeah, I think that's three examples. Values and norms. I think astrophotographers value I think they value the essence of like the universe, if that makes sense. Like in terms of how much perspective you can gain from learning about all this in the world. And, all of our worries and anxieties don't really matter. Our conflicts, they don't really matter in the long run. In the grand scheme of things, it's better to just let go of everything because we make no impact in terms of how big the universe is. And when you take a photo of a certain area of the sky where you only see 4, 5 stars with your naked eye, and then you take a photo and there's hundreds of thousands, it's like, oh, okay, whoa, where'd you come from? That's kind of how it feels. And so I think value, I think you really just kind of end up feeling grateful and focusing your life. For me, that's kind of what I did. And there's a lot of like behaviors I think that come through this, which I'll get into in a bit. And there's some not so good behaviors I disagree with, but there's some good ones. It's like a coupling mechanism. So it's nice. And norms wise, every time an astrophotographer gets a clear night, they're usually out imaging because they can be rare. And if transparency is good and there's no clouds and no moon, you're kind of set up for a night that you don't want to miss out on. Ethnocentric tendencies. The only thing that comes to mind currently is I'd say when it comes to this ethnocentric tendency, some people, when I'm talking about behaviors previous to this, think that they're better than others just because they feel so entitled because they focus on the how big our universe is and how we shouldn't be so focused on political and social problems, which is honestly just, there is some truth to it, but some people take it too far. Like I saw on Instagram a couple of days ago of this guy just basically saying like, stop focusing on social and political problems. You're only causing more division. Start focusing on a nice guy. I'm like, hot take, bro. Hot take. I mean, I think it's probably best to run towards our problems rather than or face our problems head on rather than just avoiding them. And there's truth to it in a lot of ways, and it is a very good coping mechanism. That's what I use astrophotography for a lot of the time. But yeah, that's one. I think it can create some arrogance for sure in some people. And yeah, misunderstandings. Some people think astrophotography is fake. I used to be one of those guys, so I'm kind of a hypocrite, but we don't talk about that part. But that's literally what drove me to doing astrophotography. So in a sense, it's a good thing, right? Because I was like, there's a app called Stellarium, which just shows, it's like a simulation of a night sky, but like in real time with what's actually out there. And I would look at all these nebulae and galaxies. I'm like, can I really image that? Like there's no way. I can't even see it with my eyes. And then I got a camera, and then I proved myself wrong. And then I realized like these colors that are in astrophotography are not fake. They're gases that create these colors in our images that our cameras pick up through the photons that they image. And so, yeah, people think astrophotography is fake, which is just pure ignorance. But yeah, I mean, astrophotography has changed my life. I love it, and that's a little subculture I thought I would talk about because I'm very knowledgeable about it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for listening.